You mean there's a part two of this crap? When we last left off with our hero, we were on the appointment check-in page. And then suddenly we stopped. So we were talking about form and we were talking about function and the relationship between the two, and then all of a sudden it just terminated. It's like form, function, interrupt us. Well, that was not the intention. We wanted to kind of go over some of the basics, the ideas, a little bit of minor amount of theory, a little bit of like what's the vocabulary to deal with, show a couple of examples, and then we can get into a deeper dive. Well, I have a confession to make. Yesterday, and it's part of the reason you may notice that on this side of my face I'm completely blown out. Well, there's a whole story behind that. I simply went to disconnect my television set from an outlet that I had never used before. It was part of a redesign that happened here in my living room space. Went to unplug it, and then out of the outlet came a gigantic spark. Three of them, pop, pop, pop. And then all of a sudden the lights went out. This is kind of a good example of form's relationship with function. You typically, in this case, have an issue where part of the design or the implementation is truly not serving the function. So this is not an exaggeration, folks. So here's my outlet. Here, it looks fine, right? Nothing too bad. But you know, when not done correctly and when not serving the form well, you sort of start to see this. So this is new, baby. This happened just yesterday. You can see char marks everywhere. I think there was an arcing process that went on between the neutral cable and the hot cable. And I'm no electrician, but I do play one on TV. I think that might be what occurred. And there are consequences, you know, to bad execution of form. And this is one of them. The second one is, like I said, on this side of my face, I'm completely blown out. It looks like maybe a more artistic form of lighting, but the truth of the matter is I can't lower my blinds. The blinds are on a circuit, and because of the bad execution of the design, this is what happened, and the whole circuit is blown. So gotta watch out, folks, with what you do. Do it the right way. And when we were talking about form and function, we're saying, you know, is it form over function, or is it a causal relationship that should be, you know, the right way of doing things, where you're saying to yourself, form should follow the function. And I even drew something up for you guys. Remember yesterday I had this Jamboard. I call it yesterday, but I mean, maybe it was technically when I was recording. I drew up this Jamboard which had this relationship of, and I naively said, well, why don't we do this with the, you know, bridge things together with the user script where the form is actually going in to meet the function. But now that I think about it, part of the essence of what makes a good marriage between the style and the actual functionality is maybe not that the style is just strictly serving the functionality, but maybe it's the case that the form and the function have to be so beautifully married together that it's kind of hard to see one existing without the other. Kind of beautiful idea. I don't know. So if we look back at this, I almost want to reconsider this. Maybe the user script isn't doing this guy. Maybe a well-executed relationship between your style and the actual content is to remove this barrier. So there shouldn't be this barrier here where you can distinguish between the content on one side and the form on the other, but instead kind of these things kind of go away and we no longer have this here. And maybe if we wanted to be cheesy, we could totally change this out and make instead a beautiful relationship here. We could kind of say, well, this is all one, right? Here, and how beautiful. And maybe this is what it looks like. So maybe this is what the user script should be doing, is bringing these all together into one uniform thing where your style is part of your function and vice versa, and you can't kind of see the seams anymore. It's working effectively thanks to the form, but you know, maybe this is a better way of looking at it. And I did bring up yesterday this gentleman whose name was Lewis, right? And his last name was Sullivan. He's an architect, and I mentioned to you more than once that this was basically the 18th century, and he worked on skyscrapers. But anybody knows their history knows that you know, this isn't really the case. There's an old saying, you know, I'm always right. In fact, the one time I thought I was wrong, but this time, guess what, folks? I was wrong. So even just to give the guy a little bit of credit, I'm going to show you here a little page so we can take a look at the gentleman who came up with this. This is Louis Sullivan here, and he was working back in the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s. So he's kind of the one responsible for this phrase of form following function. And I want that spirit to kind of continue in today's presentation, because we're going to take a deeper dive now exactly where we left off in our cliffhanger of the appointment check-in. And we want to kind of see more of this fusion, this perfect kind of symbiotic relationship between the form and the function together, and we want to see the style actually helping to achieve that purpose. Remember, hopefully the style is serving the purpose or intention of the object that it is modifying. So let's go ahead and go back to our, well, actually, this is a brand new chapter, right? I don't know what you call it, chapter 2 or part 2. I don't know what to call it, but we're on a new one. So let's just, you know, change a little bit of clothes here. Something a little bit cooler, fresher. You know, it doesn't look like I'm wearing the same clothes 2 days in a row. Nobody does that, right? So let's go ahead and go back to our famous example. So here we are back on the appointment check-in page, and you remember we had trouble finding certain fields such as these ones down here about balance and copay. But do you see anything else that's kind of important in this example that probably should come to the attention of a person doing check-in? Well, look here, also in very small text, we have an appointment confirmation result that says reschedule. So I would hope that part of the purpose of the actual appointment confirmation result row is that if there is a need to take a corrective action, that we know about it. Kind of just like one of the purposes of this outlet is to not shock Tony. You know, this shouldn't be happening. So we have a little bit of a design problem going on here inside of the appointment confirmation page that we, or rather check-in page, that we're going to need to address, which is, again, we want to go ahead and color this. So easily done. So all we would need to do inside of our user script code is to go ahead and search for this, and when it happens, we just want to color it. So I'll show you again, this is a version without the user script. I'm going to click over, you're going to see the banner change to black, and you will see the difference between this and the actual user script version 1. Right here. So that's it. We go from this to this. And that is done through a little splash of color. And the color is letting us know that there is an issue here. We have kind of an alert, and it's drawing our eyes' attention here through the sake of color. So all these rows are kind of pointing to one status, which is everything is okay. And this one's kind of showing, yeah, we have an issue here that we need to address. So I want to give you an example that you can see in your regular life of style implementing color to go ahead and communicate a distinctiveness. I thought about this because some people still have these. If you are saying you don't and you don't use cash anymore, but back in the day when I was a kid, I think somebody gave me one of these guys. So these were the little coin banks. There's a little area right here on the top for you to put your coins in. They kind of go down here, you know, back and forward, and they're sorted based on what type of coin they are. Well, the real question is, after I filled this guy up to the top, I know I need this to become part of a coin wrapper. But how do I distinguish the difference if I'm, for example, a bank teller? How do I distinguish the difference between this, a roll of pennies, say, and a similar shaped roll of dimes? And how do I tell the difference between a full roll of nickels versus a row, a one of quarters here on the far end here? Well, it all happens through color. So what ends up taking place, if I can show that to you, is that we have these paper rolls, and all of my dimes will go into this one, and all of my my pennies go into this one. So if I'm a bank teller and I need to rapidly hand out a correct amount of money when people ask me for nickels or dimes or quarters or whatever, these are all color-coded a certain way, and that is communicating through style something about the actual content. So that is a really cool way of looking at this. It's easy for the teller to know which denomination they're handing out. So we've kind of done the same thing here with the reschedule. We've gone ahead and colored it a certain way, and that lets our person doing the check-in understand that there is definitely a difference that we need to acknowledge and maybe do something about. How is this implemented? Here it is. So we're just doing a selection of elements inside of our document of a particular, when we're in a particular context, basically the column and cell of this table needs to say reschedule, and if it is, all we're doing is just adding a class. So we're adding this CSS class directly into that piece of the document, and in our style sheet, we've already put together that particular declaration block that says color it a certain way when this happens, and it seems to work okay. You may have also noticed here at the top, this has been blurred out to protect the innocent. This on its own is actually a piece of style. This is also basically a declaration going on. And I could show it to you here inside of the code. If I go back to it, I can go look for anonymous, and here we are. Anonymize. Here it is, and it says, you know, if for the sake of, you know, protecting the innocent during a demo, we want to describe, we want to show something of theirs. Why don't we go ahead and find them? And when we do find them, we're going to assign a filter. A filter is one of these features that were added in the third version of CSS, and we're just blurring it with to a level of 6 pixels. And in so doing, we kind of making it difficult for details about this particular individual from rising to the surface. Here we are back with Tina Test, who we left off was checking in. And we want to go ahead and edit the appointment prior to the arrival. And from here, we have kind of the form that relates to aspects about this configured appointment. And everything kind of seems to be okay here, but it's not. The truth of the matter is this patient's primary insurance is not accepted at the practice. That's this one here. Oscar. And furthermore, you barely see it unless you're squinting. But the secondary insurance that's going to be billed for this particular appointment that's being checked in is already canceled. I don't think this is the right way to use style to help out a check-in person, you know? Don't think this is the right thing to do here. Instead, what we'd like to have happen is have some sort of a style here on the primary insurance that's not accepted at the practice. And also, we'd like to be aware that this is a canceled insurance, and we'd like to see that very viscerally. We don't want it to be explicitly explained to us. We want it to be shown and demonstrated in a very concise manner that we pick up right away. So how can we do that? It's, again, going to come through style. We're going to place a border around this, which is dotted, almost like it's time to cut out this particular insurance out of here, the Oscar, and the other one we're going to highlight with an orange color. So let's take a look at it now. Let's go back to the version of the of this which has the user script, and let's check it out. Here we are. Go back into the appointment, edit appointment prior to arrival. Again, you know, if you're playing along at home, up here in the top, the black banner signifies we've got the user script running, and this tells you how many instances are going. We'll go back exactly to this edit appointment prior to arrival. And we see here, we've gone ahead and put the style around the one that should be excised. And the second one is canceled. It should be styled slightly differently. This is just arbitrarily chosen this. But you can see here, there are other options here that should probably be chosen in its place. For example, this patient currently has an AvMed policy that is not having a problem. Why do we know that? Because it's not showing up like this last option for Blue Cross Blue Shield is canceled or with an orange background. So we could change it to that. But the style added to here has allowed the check-in person to be aware that there is a need for repair of this appointment before you allow the patient through. That's all done through the CSS. Besides this, we're going to see policies also show up on the quick view. These same policies, let's go ahead and take a look at our good friend Tina Test inside of her quick view. We're going to scroll to the bottom of it. And here indeed is this Oscar that we know now is not accepted at the practice. And we know about this AvMed has a little bit of an issue, or rather the Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's not even on here. The Blue Cross Blue Shield, check it out, is way over here on the cancels. So we need to address these problems, and we're going to try to communicate it in the same manner that you saw in the appointment check-in, but we're going to do it through style. In the case of Oscar, the problems here are not only is this not accepted at the practice, so we want to kind of put that same highlighted DOM element around this entire guy here. There is no card image here. So this should probably be highlighted as well to show in this case that there's a couple of problems that we need to look at. Once we go ahead and turn on our style that we're adding through the user script, we have a different look, and that's here. So here are the policies. And we see here this kind of orange or salmon color. This color is rather arbitrary, and it's clearly pointing out with this banner and this dotted line that this should be excised. And we're also highlighting the fact that we don't have the card image, which probably has all the vital information about where the, confirm the billing address and confirm the actual policy ID, and we're missing that. Here with the AvMed, we're missing a card image, but it's not one that should be excised. So you do get this kind of warning color that this needs work. And the yellow, again, points to the area that we know needs your attention. But it's drawing your eye so that you know there's a problem. If we were to go back to the version without the user script, you don't really see that there's much wrong here with the AVMED. I mean, this ID number appears to be incorrect, which is kind of a nice warning, but it's not telling me overall there's a problem with the policy. And also, it's kind of mild, the notion of unverified. If we compare this to what we have in the other version, we've actually got this bolded. So it's much easier to see that this has an issue with this verification versus this. And these are just slight tweaks that we've done inside of the style. Now, if we scroll down and take a look at the third policy we have here, I'll show you another problem that was tackled through style and solved that way. Down here, if we scroll down to the bottom, we have this Geico personal injury policy for Tina, and we have the ID number. Well, I don't know if you've had this problem before, but certain fonts tend to show characters that are similarly structured almost in an identical fashion. For example, in this case, you can see here that there's two circles. One of them represents a number 0, and the other one represents a actual letter O, both of which could come up inside of a policy ID. And similarly, we've got kind of a little bit of a distinctiveness here with the 1, but look at this one over here. Is this a 1? If I were to have left out this character, would you notice that this is a 1, or is this a letter I? It's kind of hard to tell. So what we did was, well, let's go ahead and do two things. Firstly, let's change the spacing between the letters and make it a little bit wider. And then more importantly, let's go ahead and change our font family. Remember when we looked at different fonts on the same quick view page? Well, we're going to change the font family of this particular portion of the quick view, which is the policy content, and we're going to change it to one that we know as a font family demonstrates much more clearly the distinctiveness between a number 1 and a letter I, capital letter I, and also distinctively between a capital letter O and a number 0. Well, as you may know from Europe and other countries, many countries besides the United States basically are always putting a slash through their 0. So we need to pick a font that's going to do something similar to that. And that's exactly what we've done. We can go ahead and now look at the version without the user script. And let's go to the one with the user script, which is right here. And we can compare the two. So here we are. Go back and forth. You'll see that this is the one without the user script. So our text ends about here, and the one with the user script ends way over here. So the spacing is much larger, so we can kind of see more distinctively characters. And in our example here, we have our ID. And you can see the difference between the ID here in the two versions. This is without the user script. Take a look, pay attention to the ones that look like they could be zeros or could be a letter O, and then take a look at the second to the last character that you're not sure if it's a 1 or an I. So here it is. In the version that has the user script, you can tell the O from the 0 because the 0 has a slash through it. I'll blow it up just a little bit so you can see it better. So it has a slash through it. And also your letter I is no longer a vertical stick, even though it's capitalized. It's actually got the top and the bottom horizontal pieces of it that make it very clear that this is not to be confused with a 1. And that's all accomplished through the style that we've done here. The next piece that we're going to do is we're going to look at a third section of this particular website, which you go in after the appointment check-in, which would be the chart itself. Inside of the chart, we were noticing quite a bit of things that were very similarly not being brought to the attention when there were gaps or reasons to be a little bit more careful. If we go ahead into the chart, we're going to look at this other patient you've never seen before, so this is very exciting. And her name is, where is she? Meaningful use. Oh, okay. And here's meaningful use. And meaningful use is now, we're looking at the chart and we're going to pretend this is a patient who has never been to the practice before. And you're going to see some distinctive things to this empty chart. You have to read the text here. Remember, I'm saying maybe this should be done kind of through style. We notice that there's this bit here that the patient will return to the office as needed. That's kind of bad because that means this patient doesn't have a follow-up appointment. There hasn't been anything recorded here for this particular patient. That's kind of bad. There are these other non-recordeds, which are back over here. If we go in here to the various tabs and we look at, for example, their vaccines, they're none recorded here. We take our inspector that we showed you how to use in the first part, and we go ahead here, and sure enough, there's an existing class called none recorded, but there's absolutely no styling being done on it. It's no different than anything else. It's kind of important to know some of these things are not recorded. If we further look here at the vital signs, wait a minute, there's also none recorded. So that's not good. We probably want our person doing intake for the patient to understand that this is missing here. And we can go look at results, maybe for test results or whatever. Wait a minute, there's no results here either. And then if we scroll down to the actual history section, which has our social history or medical history, family history, these are full of these non-recordeds. So what we'd like to have happen instead is whenever the CSS class that's already existing in the original document indicates none recorded, we'd like to style it in a similar manner. We're going to highlight that DOM element's background color. And that's exactly what we're doing here. I'm going to go back and forth between the version with the JavaScript user script and without it. So here's the version without. And here, pay attention, here's the version on the right-hand side, here's the version with. Similarly, if I go ahead to these other same sections and I find these non-recorded sections, I see these things here. The vitals, well, there's no vitals, there's no screening. These are highlighted. If I go to the results, I see it highlighted that there's no results here. The others was here in the history section. I can clearly see to the eye, compared to in this version, without the user script, that certain sections do not have histories here. And with the user script, I see that these need to be taken at the time of intake. So the whole purpose of these sections is to describe that we are missing part of this person's documentation, and now is the time that you have the chart open, say in an exam, or maybe preparing for that upcoming visit, that we have a gap here that we need to address. And this is more easily accomplishing that communication purely through style. No extra text on the screen, just through style, drawing your attention to your eye. All right, we're here with Tina, and Tina Test has similar decorations on some of these tabs on the right-hand side, quantifying, they call it a pill, the number of items inside of here that kind of need your attention. There's one in here under allergies. You pop it open, it says, oh, this person has an allergy to iodine. And under quality, it's going to show us that the patient has 16 quality measures that should probably be addressed right now that haven't been, that are kind of these care gaps. We want to do something very similar. We're going to take the apply more of a style to bring this out, make it a stronger attention to the eye that there is an issue here so that we actually attack some of these quality gaps. So if we go look at the version with the style sheet, we see this. So we have these numbers and they're larger than in the prior case. Here's the version with the style sheet, and here's the version without the style sheet. So these numbers have been changed in their size of this particular pill count. It's become larger here. Similarly, when we open up the quality tab, these have past dues. We want to make these stand out a little bit more, and so we're doing that here inside of the one with the user script and making them a little bit more distinctive. So if we look at the two of them, we can kind of see the difference. This is the version without the user script, and this is the one with a more emphatic version, which brings your attention to your eye through the boldness here, which is called the font weight of these past due elements. And in this case, they're basically built-in CSS that was already here. There was no need to do anything. Now, we have here under visits a similar thing that goes on. If we go ahead and open up the version without the user scripts, this looks like everything's hunky-dory, but there are certain visits here that have problems. When you click on them, the property is that they expand open. If we do this one, you see how it's expanding. Well, two problems exist in here. Number one, some of these are still open, which means that the exam was never closed by the physician, even though they're not any longer in the present day or even the last visit, they're still open. We'd like to draw attention to that through style. And secondly, there's also some in here that don't even have any diagnosis or orders. Well, this is a big problem. That means that despite the fact that a nurse visit happened, we don't have any procedures that was or even added here. So the question then becomes, well, number one, what happened during that visit? What procedures did occur? They're not recorded. And secondly, if it's still open, does this mean that maybe this was never billed at all? So we can see what we do with the user script instead when we open this. Let's go to the version that has the user script and open up the visits. And the first thing you'll see here is like suddenly you've got, again, this kind of salmonish color highlight, but it becomes very clear to see. So two things are happening here. The one is that we're doing this highlighting of any problematic encounter that is in the history, ones that are open and ones that don't have any a diagnosis or orders added. They're just basically empty, which doesn't make any sense. And the second thing is we're expanding the ones so that you can see that explanation that there is no diagnosis or orders, which would otherwise be accordion closed and you wouldn't be able to see anything on. So that's what's happening here. And the third bit is, you remember we were talking in our first chapter about this Mint class, CSS class that we were doing. We're kind of utilizing that here to put some extra information in. But it's kind of drawing attention to the eye that, wait a minute, we've got a problem here with certain things. To top it all off, we've added a nice little dashboard. I don't want to go too much into it. We've done this earlier, but it's keeping account to kind of show you that there are issues here. So you can compare this with the one that doesn't have the user script, and there's absolutely no markings anywhere. So if you're not slowing down to scrutinize, and really, who has the time to do that during an actual, encounter? You'll never see this stuff. So we want to let the clinical staff know that there is an issue, and the way to do that is to go ahead and decorate these particular visits so that it's very clear to the eye that there's a problem. And this is all done through style. So the style is serving the function, and the function here is to make sure that any problematic prior visits in the history are fleshed out, and they aren't right now. So the rounded borders that we're seeing here kind of reminds me of something. And also the thickness we've seen over here inside of the past due is reminding me of something, which is an amusing anecdote, which also has to do with style. And I'd like to kind of talk to you a little bit about it. But, you know, you and I have gone through quite a bit here, and it's time we kind of take a break. So why don't we do that? Let's go ahead and take a break. How do we do that? Well, what we're going to do is have a little coffee, and who couldn't use a little bit of coffee right now? I want to show you the coffee mug that we have here in the home, and I do not like to use these anywhere near my computer. Why is that? Well, look at the bottom, right? And what ends up happening is these guys are very easy to topple. So this is not good. This is very pretty, the style, right? The color's nice. The shape is nice. The lip is actually very nice too, very thin. But the problem that I care about the most is the wobbly nature of this. Let me show it to you from a different angle. Here's my surface, and I could put it down here, and you could see that it is very easy for this to kind of want to fall over. And look how wobbly it is. So I imagine if that happened and you had it full of coffee and your laptop was right over here, I mean, that is not going to work out well for you folks. So in its stead, what we want to do is use a different type of mug, which I usually use. And you've seen it in a prior episode. And that's this one here. Different shape. Do you notice at the bottom? Now it's still got a nice little lip. But the bottom of it is the same, almost, it's not smaller than the top. So, you know, it's at least as wide as part of the center. So if you're looking at the center of gravity, they're making it very hard for this to be wobbly. If we go ahead and put it down here in the same spot, you can kind of see that. If I turned it upside down, we don't notice any distinctive difference here, except for the fact that, you know, this got chopped up here by somebody who wasn't careful washing it. But let me try also to topple this one. It's going to be extremely hard for me to go ahead and topple this guy because it doesn't want to fall over. So I can with confidence use this around my computer, and I don't have that same risk going on. So in this case, again, we are dealing with the style serving the purpose of this. One of the purposes of this is to not cause danger. You remember our example before with this guy over here. One of the reasons it's around is to avoid us getting into danger. And this shouldn't happen, and neither should the spill of that mug. So we don't want that to happen either. So let's go ahead and show you a third type, which maybe you've seen before and wondered about, which is called the diner mug. The diner mug kind of looks like this. It's rather thick, right? And it's got an even wider base. You see that? It's wider here at the base than it is farther up. So how did this design come about? Well, the story goes that back in the early 1940s, the U.S. Navy had a challenge. And that challenge was to build a better coffee mug. Why did the Navy need a better coffee mug? Well, the challenge that they put out for, and they took bids from all over the country, was they needed to make a mug that was okay to use on ships that move in the water and sway, and we want to minimize the amount of damage that was going to be caused by these coffee mugs. And one problem that can happen, if we go back and look at this one here, not only is it going to topple, this is very delicate. So you can imagine on a ship, this ramming into something. This maybe is not going to last more than a couple of months before it gets chipped. Remember the chip I just showed you, but that can happen. And also it's too light, so it's more likely to roll away, right? When we go ahead and put it on a boat that's swaying. So what we need to do is to build a better one that is going to cause less damage due to knocking or sliding. And the winning bid came in from the Victor Insulator Company. And they came up with this one that well, it's not exactly this model, but it is close to it. And this is what we now know to be the diner mug. So if you've ever wondered why they're as heavy as they are, part of it is that so they don't break. And it applies to diners just like chips. The last thing you want to do is buy very, very fine, finely lipped, say, wine glasses that are super delicate. And if you've ever had one break in your house, maybe you're putting it away after you dry it. You don't want that happening. Otherwise, you'll be buying wine glasses like crazy. And you similarly in a diner, especially where there's not like fine dining, you want to serve the coffee. That's its main purpose. But what it's not supposed to be is stylistically elegant and yet impractical, where you have these types of problems. So we've got this here where it's just a great mug that is not only isn't going to topple, we can't move it very easily, right? We can't have it sway, and the bottom is literally thicker and wider than the top, or at least darn close to it. So this guy is pretty sturdy. It's not going to break. And the Victor Insulator Company went ahead and won this bid and was able to create it. Well, what else did they make that kind of inspired them to do something, say, out of porcelain? Well, they were known back in the late 1800s, the 1890s. They formed this company, and what they became known for were a series of patents related to insulators. And these insulators you may have seen inside of power lines, power stations, and I can show you what they look like. You probably have seen these or something very close to them. Here's a picture from St. Louis Fair, and in here you could see a bunch of them. And if you haven't seen these in the neighborhood that you live in, you've never really looked up at some of those power poles. But these are insulators, and the shape of these is really what's interesting, and it's serving the purpose of this. So what is an insulator used for? Well, these insulators here the whole purpose of them is to protect the cable from the one conductor from other conductors. And it's also to protect them from a longevity purpose. Well, look at the shape of these, the roundness, and they're also made of porcelain, kind of similar to you might see in the coffee mug. But these are designed this way with this style primarily to prevent the flow of electricity between the conductor and other conductors or the ground. Another aspect that's really, really cool about the shape of these is that the roundness of it helps it to nicely shed water off of them, which is going to protect these same power lines during the rain. A third thing that the style is accomplishing that's serving the intention of the object is its nature of being as thick as it is, and its nature of being made of porcelain are making it highly resistant to breaking under stress. So that's going to be a good feature too. So all of these aspects of the style, whether it's the thickness, whether it's the roundness, or whether it's the nature of the chosen material, all three of those are going to make for longevity and correct behavior of the actual content, which is in this case, we're trying to protect the power station and the power line through insulating it in this manner. And it's understandable that these guys went ahead and have, you know, dozens of patents, and you've seen these everywhere. So good for them. Not only did they kind of create this version of an insulator that you may have seen in your neighborhood, but on top of that, they've created a damn nice coffee mug to the point where you're seeing it in diners everywhere for almost some of the same reasons, right? It's thick. And secondly, its shape is preventing it from causing damage. So pretty smart. If we want to look at another example real quick where we're dealing with thickness and we're dealing with color, you probably have seen in homes or kitchens lemon squeezers. Well, there's this other concept now of a citrus squeezer, which is to be used by both lemons and limes, and I have one here, and I want to applaud what's happening in here inside of the style. So not only is it decorative, this guy, and it's yellow, which is kind of nice, but the middle plate, there's two plates here, and the second one, the second squeezer here, is on top of a green piece. And this is a nice way of telling the user, even though they should know how to use it, but it's kind of evocative and pretty at the same time, that the larger compartment here is meant for lemons. And of course, the smaller compartment here is more suited for a lime. So if I were to put my green colored lime into this guy, you kind of know right away this is not where you're supposed to be. So we should probably use instead this smaller piece here. It's a little bit of a brilliant design. At the same time, it's kind of pleasing to the eye. We talked about visual pleasure or sensory pleasure that comes with style, but the style is also kind of showing us immediately when you look at it, hey, this is not a single type of fruit squeezer. I can handle multiple types here. And it's also showing me through the thickness of it where this needs to go. Of course, after the first time, I kind of know how to use this. But if you find this in a drawer, you're like, oh, because of the contrast here of the two colors, the yellow and the green, you say this is a multi type of fruit squeezer that I can start using, and that's pretty cool. I'm going to show you how we're going to do similar decoration through color to show you what's wrong. So again, my analogy is the bird's eye view, but the bird has no glasses on. Somebody has removed the glasses and we're not able to see anything. By the way, I'd like to give an extra special shout out to the contractor who messed up my outlets when they installed it. Again, you could see this entire blowout here of my face. There's really nothing I can do. I mean, I could probably try to bring some lighting closer, but it's just it is crazy. So thanks so much for not only messing up my recording but screwing up my living room. I really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and go back and check out what's going on with this particular feature. This is another bird's eye view, which we get to here through the communicator. We're going to go ahead and look at the communication history. The communication history is explaining to us in the past when the automated systems that communicate out to the patient on behalf of the software to tell them about an upcoming appointment, that's here, or perhaps a billing issue that they need their help, or maybe we've published something to their portal. So the communication history tells us all about that, going back in time, what kinds of messages were sent, when they were sent. So let's look at it here for Tina. And when we click on it, we see, you know, oh, this is okay. There's a bunch of stuff here, but it's a bird's eye view, but it's not really telling us anything, right? It's not, there's nothing that's communicated in a visual manner that there's any issue that needs addressing. Well, what kinds of things could need addressing? Maybe your phone number doesn't work. So the phone number that the automated system's using left and right is never getting through. It's actually getting a out of service. Well, I'd like to know that. How about the email address? We've tried to send your email and the email bounce. I'd like to know that too. if there's such a problem going on for this particular user, this bird's eye view should see it. But because we don't have our glasses on, thank God I don't have a prop for that one, we're not seeing it that well. So we want to kind of have our style put on a pair of glasses and allow us to see something so that we are able, from this panopticon type scenario, to see exactly what's wrong. So if I go over to the same exact view, but in this case with the user script working, and I compare the two, this is the version without the user script, no glasses on, and here's the version with the user script, glasses on. So you can see right away, very quickly to the eye, I could be halfway across the room when I do this, that there is an issue. So on these types of messages, the SMS is not being delivered. If the SMS isn't being delivered, it means the cell phone number that we have on file for this patient is incorrect. So we've had a count of 4 times that didn't work, and look at our email. Our email also doesn't work. So compare again without the user script, and then with the style added inside of the user script. Big difference. Similarly, now that we've done that, we can do a deep dive into the detailed view. And I can do that here for the version without the user script. And, I have to kind of look in here and squint and see any of them. I can click on one to see what the message is and all that. But what's really important to me when I'm looking at this is, was there an issue? So let's take a look at the version, again, without the user script. And then let's toggle over to the version with the user script. Okay, so we can see here that there were issues with this SMS, and we actually know by very quickly look at it exactly, we can pinpoint the line of the row here of exactly when the problem took place. So check it out. A difference. And actually, here's another one. So this is a new one that needs to be modified in here. But let's go ahead, if we can, and take a look at the how this is implemented under the covers. And if we go over here to our IDE and check it out, we can see here, clean the patient communication history. We're going to look for 3 things. We're going to look for not sent. We're going to look for unable to reach. And we're going to look for not delivered. And if any of these are true, what we want to do is add this class, and this class is the warning class. And as soon as that's added inside of our CSS, we've already implemented here some uses of it. And we can see later we're right over here, and we're modifying it with these styles. So that's easy to understand. We're using these constants in a way that is bridging together the CSS, the style aspect, with the actual content aspect, which is where the JavaScript comes in. We're making actual changes to the DOM and adding that class as a way of decorating it. Let's see now. I've never tried this before, but I bet you we can tackle and get on maybe first try that one that is not rendering correctly. Let's go back and take a look at this again. This is live programming. Never saw this happening before, but let's take a look at these descriptors here of when there is a problem and they're not, see this rejected here. I'm willing to bet anytime you have the word rejected here, this is definitely something that needs to be fixed. I'm going to look at these ones that are not yet being served by the user script. And this is the rejected keyword in here that's not matching. I'm just copying it. And then I'm going to go back here to the user script, paste it in here, and I want to make a new decoration on those TDs, those cells in here that contain this word, rejected. So I'll paste that in here. Save it. Looks like I gotta get rid of this garbage that I don't need anymore. And my problem's gone away. Let's go back to this feature one more time and refresh it. So you remember this isn't working here. If I go to the summary version, Well, now look what's happening. These rejected ones are showing up here on the summary view. Let's go back to the detailed view and see if we've actually solved this problem. Look at these. So now you can see all of these guys are having a problem. Indeed, this is for Tina Test. And remember, Tina doesn't actually, it's a fictitious character, doesn't exactly have a phone number or doesn't have a email address. So we would expect all of these guys to get rejected. And sure enough, I mean, that's been what's going on here. It looks like at the beginning of time, we actually gave a legitimate email address to Tina. But after that, because she's just for testing, we would hope that all the communications were failing. And that's actually what's happened here. So suddenly you've taken what was a very lame bird's eye view that was not actually serving the true intent, and the style is actually delivering on that. So we've able to take a list that's just boring, which might be good if you're looking at the first two, but when you want a bird's eye view and you want to immediately know if something's wrong and where there's something wrong and what's wrong, this has been able to do it for you through style. I'm going to take a look now at a last one, which is going to be used very, very similarly. It's called the eligibility and phone list. Every time you have a day's worth of appointments, you have this beautiful opportunity to print out a list of concisely everything about those appointments coming up. You know, what's the patient's name? What's their insurance? What did they have any balance? What was the communication history like? Did they reply and confirm RSVP or not? So I can pick any day I want here, and inside of that day, I have this eligibility phone list. I can load it, and it gives me a nice overview of everything. But just like in the last two cases where we looked at a very, very long list of missing slips and a very long list of communication attempts, on first inspection, we don't know where there's something wrong, if ever there's something wrong. Inside of this guy here, like if we look at this version without the user script, we have Tina Test coming in at 10 o'clock, and we have at 11 o'clock Rachel Test coming in. They're not related, but they just happen to have the same last name. And you remember there were certain issues going on earlier when we looked at Tina Test. The insurance was not verified, right? But for Rachel, she's got an okay and eligibility checked, insurance that's working fine. So Tina's in a problem, but we can't see that too easily. Not so easy to see. There's a little bit of a red color here added, which is nice. Doesn't make it too easy on the eye to figure that out. And then what's the problem in the patient balance column that you might see? Well, when the patient comes in, Rachel's good, but guess what? There's an existing balance for Tina Tests that she should probably pay at check-in or at minimum by the time she leaves that day. What else is going on here? Well, if we look at the appointment confirmation result for the two of them, neither of them answered, right? Neither of them have RSVP'd, so we don't know whether or not they're coming in unless somebody from the office has called them manually and gotten an okay that they're on their way in for that day. This would happen several days in advance. So the communicator, the robocaller, the robo-emailer was not able to get a response back. But, you know, if you look at it this way and you kind of stand back a few feet, you don't see anything here. So what we need to do is decorate this in a very similar manner. So here's the version without the user script. And let's look at the version with the user script where we're empowering through style the intention of catching problems without the style, and version with the style. And there's another one we didn't catch, which was this add card image. So the card image is missing for both of them. And the style is able to achieve that here. How exactly does this work? Very similar to the one before. We can look at it very briefly. Make it shine. So here we are inside of the cleaner for the eligibility and phone list. And it's going to, in a nutshell, if we scroll down to the main meat of the matter, we're going to make sure that we're on the right page. And if we are on the right page, which is the eligibility and phone list, then we're going to do a few things here. If the patient owes money, we're going to make that DOM element shine. If they have a bad primary care physician, which is not us and it needs to be, then that wasn't one we could show here, but we're gonna make it shine. If the insurance is unverified, we're gonna make it shine. If they're missing cards, we're gonna make it shine. And if they're not confirmed to come in, we're going to make it shine. Or if even there's an alert somewhere else, an alert tag, we're going to make it shine. What are all these silly methods and why are we making it shine? We have an abstract method, make it shine. And all we need to do is pass to it the, the DOM location for this. And if the condition is met, then we call this method. And that's all there is to it. So when you've implemented this as a user script, it's going ahead and adding, here's make it shine, just simply adding this warning class to that particular DOM element where it was needed. And when you do that, you end up with the difference between this and this. And that is all done through style, and it's just that simple. We've looked at a lot of examples here where we've had these kind of challenges where you're dealing with problems that need a solution, and they're not quite coming in through the user script. So our goal is to, through style added on top of this, through the nature of the form, we're trying to actually fulfill the function intentions of that particular page. And we're able to do that through style. So nothing's terribly different than the good old Victor mug here. So I encourage you to think and be inspired by things like this item, or maybe the citrus squeezer. And also don't forget about your good friend when style goes wrong. We don't want that to happen. But in general, we want to make through style something that doesn't topple over, and something that serves the purpose of, number one, I don't want to cause any harm, number one, and secondly, I want to be kind of robust. So I'm able to do that through style, and you can do the same thing. You can just go ahead and be very, very careful and try to be as wise as you can, and add style in and marry it actually to the content in a way that's serving that purpose, in a way the content on its own just cannot do unless it's being awfully descriptive and verbal and kind of cheating their way through it. And hopefully you can do something very, very similar. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and this kind of walkthrough design and style all through your life, and what it can do for you in fulfilling a purpose. It doesn't have to be purely decorative, Remember the mug, or the one that I'm using all the time. It has some content on it, and I like it a lot, and I've used it for years. But the main reason I use it is not, the content. I'm most proud of this guy because of the design that's in this, and the style, because the style is what's helping me to enjoy a nice mug of coffee every day in front of my computer without the problem of a disaster happening like my good old electrician was giving me with their crazy implementation of my wonderful plugs that work. And now I'm all blown out, right? Good thing I'm not a vampire this month, otherwise I'd be in big trouble. But try to do some of the same stuff. Try to do what screenwriting professors used to call don't say it, show it. So if you're in a movie and you're writing a screenplay, the worst thing you could do is have the guy say to the girl, "I love you." That's really boring, and it's not doing something indirectly in a beautiful way. It's being too explicit about it. Well, you want to have that communicated through style. In the case of the screenwriting example, that would be for the boyfriend to suddenly decide he's going to, despite having an obligation, he's going to leave work and go spend time with the girlfriend. Or maybe he doesn't have the money to spend, and he can't even pay his rent for the month. but he wants to make his lady happy, and so he decides to take her out on a beautiful dinner. That on its own, through the style of that, is actually accomplishing the intention. And the intention there was to say, how do I, as a screenwriter, my intention is to communicate organically and viscerally that this gentleman adores this lady. And you don't do that through just saying, I love you, honey. What a boring movie that would be. But it would be through these types of sacrifices that he could make through these actions. So do me a favor, take that screenwriting classes adage to heart when you're working on your own designs, and don't say it, show it. And in so doing, you're able to serve the intentions of that object that you're trying to fulfill in the right way. Much like our good friend, Mr. Sullivan did, not in the 18th century, but the 1800s. And I think you can do the same. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. I'm hoping you enjoyed this. Was it really a second part? Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. Part 2 of our 2-part journey into style. You know, bring style into your life. And in so closing, I want to show you, maybe this is the appropriate thing for me to do, is to go back to a style we haven't seen in a while. There are vintage clothing stores in town, and I was able to pick this guy up. Let's see if I can put her on. I'm not getting too fat. This is from the 1970s, people. Do you see these collars? Is this style or what? Remember, we're talking about increasing the size? Well, we've done it here, folks, with this. This is going to come back in style. And how about this? The opening here on my shirt and the colors here, man. These colors are standing out. But look at this. Look at this opening here. Where are my buttons? There are no buttons. You know why? Stylistic choice. Instead, we've got this. You ready for this? It's a zipper. And look at this. This is also style. Very easily, I can find it even in the dark. I don't have to go fumbling here. Sometimes I have problems with these buttons. I can't find them when I'm trying to put my shirt together, but I can always find this. Why don't they do more of these, folks? So do me a favor, add some style into your life and into what you're doing. And if you're doing it right, you might look as cool as I look right now, baby. This is fantastic, and you too can do great stuff with style. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you had some fun, and I hope you travel back to the 70s, and I hope you can travel back in time to when my electrician was installing my outlets and fixes this so that I don't get blinded anymore after today. But thanks again. Stay tuned for more fun stuff, and go do something cool with style. Talk to you next time. Bye.